Good morning and a very warm welcome. My name is Mary Marin and I have the pleasure of being the Chief Executive of Employers for Childcare. And we're delighted to see so many people here virtually for our workshop, which is going to be looking at flexible working. One of the most important aspects actually of the work that we do with our charity is working with employers, encouraging and supporting them to promote family-friendly working policies. And those policies are important to enable employees to effectively balance their working and home lives, whether that's caring for young children or older relatives, or as is much more common now during lockdown, the much loved family pet. But it is important that this works for businesses as well. It has to work for employers as well as the employees. The work still has to get done, and we must support employers to think innovatively and positively about flexible and family working policies. So this being National Work-Life Week, and usually the week we would be coming together in the beautiful surroundings of the Galgorm Resort and Spa, which we have done now for many years. And we do that to celebrate the very best in family-friendly working policies right across the UK at our annual Family-Friendly Employer Awards. Now, we're not able to get there just yet. Let's hope, fingers crossed, we'll be there this time next year. But we will continue to celebrate the in-person here with you today, and we're thrilled to have put this workshop together and hope that you have come prepared with your own scones and coffees and biscuits or whatever you're having this morning. We have some excellent speakers, both local to Northern Ireland and also from further afield, so a huge thank you to them for agreeing to take part with us and to share their experiences and insight, as well as giving us their time this morning. And you're going to hear from them very shortly. Just before we do, though, there's a few issues of housekeeping that I'd like to just raise very quickly before we begin. If I can ask everyone to stay on mute for the speakers' presentations, just to avoid any distractions and interruptions and possibly dogs barking in the background. Feel free to keep your cameras on or off depending on what works best for you, but it is lovely to see some faces as we go through. So we are recording this session as a resource for use in future, so if you don't want to feature in that, can you please keep your camera off? And similarly, we will be taking some photographs throughout the event. I'm going to give each of the speakers an opportunity to share their insights, and then what we'll have is a question and a discussion at the end, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for that. And if you have any questions, you can just put them and pop them into the chat as we go along, and then we can collate them for the Q&A at the end, if that's okay with everyone. So, and our speakers have been allocated 15 minutes, and that means then that we'll have an opportunity for a really good discussion at the end and get people's views. And so I'm hoping if that's clear, then we can move on to the main session and welcome our first speaker. So if that's okay, then we have Kate Jarman, who is the co-founder of FlexNHS. And we are really thrilled to welcome Kate to the workshop this morning. We've actually been following her work through the campaign for a long time and are big admirers of what she and the campaign is doing to support those who have given so much and continue to in our health service to achieve some flexible and family-friendly working. Now, obviously, given the nature of the NHS, for many, working from home isn't really an option, and it is important that flexible working and working from home aren't seen as the same thing. There are many ways that employers can support their employees through flexible working, even if working from home isn't possible. So Kate is going to discuss supporting our health service heroes with flexible working. So I'm going to hand over, Kate, the virtual floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here with you. I'm going to share my screen, so I've got a few slides to just share with you, and then an opportunity, obviously, for a discussion at the end. So hopefully everyone can see that. Let's go from the beginning. So FlexNHS, so I'll tell you a bit about myself first. My name is Kate Jarman. I'm a director in the NHS. I work for Milton Keynes Hospital, and my day job is governance and legal work and communications and fundraising, a mixed sort of bag of different things. My job is Director of Corporate Affairs. And about 3 years ago, I set up FlexNHS with a colleague called Aoife. There we are, pre-pandemic photo. We both look less tired than we do now. And we set up a campaign and a sort of social movement that is FlexNHS. Because we were both talking at the time, blogging. We'd never met before actually, but met over Twitter, talking about our experiences as working parents and our experiences of going back to work, particularly after having children. I've got 3 children aged now between 6 and 11, and Ash got a daughter who's just started primary school, and we've had very different experiences going sort of to and from back into work after having children. And I'd particularly gone to lots of leadership events during that time where lots of senior people in the NHS, men and women, were talking about their experiences of working flexibly, and they described that in the sort of context of being able to occasionally do a school drop-off or go to a sports day, and that's great and actually a really important part of flexible working. But it got us thinking about how that actually worked if you had no agency over your own diary, if your time really wasn't your own. And for shift workers particularly, the time kind of isn't their own, and somebody else is doing their rostering and looking at the time that they need to work, and especially in a 24-hour service, it's really tough to offer flexibility. Was our starting point, and we wanted to explore how we could stop it being so tough and start it being much more straightforward, and have a sort of employer culture across the NHS where people said yes to flexibility to enable people to stay and work. And I'll explore a bit more of that a bit later in this slide. So we had I've changed my hair colour throughout these photos, so like I'm really blonde now, but I started off being really not blonde. So if in case you're wondering who those people are on there, it's still me. So we teamed up really quickly in starting FlexNHS, and we started it as a campaign movement deliberately, not a sort of not a kind of NHS corporate movement, but a sort of social movement through online platforms, social media platforms particularly. And we teamed up with some influencers, some of whom might be familiar to people on this workshop. Mother Pucker, Anna Whitehouse, and her husband Matt Farquharson, who's Papa Pucker. When we first started working with them, were flexible working influencers, both journalists by background. They're now best-selling authors and radio presenter, and I think have recently Anna's started presenting on Channel 4. So have an incredible reach and have really supported us in reaching people to start conversations in the NHS around flexible working. And every time we do posts with Anna and Matt, we get a huge response and a massive amount of insight into what flexible working is really like for staff, working in the NHS in different jobs. And often I think, particularly when we're in senior positions, it's easy to make assumptions that people's working life is like yours. And actually, whenever we do these sorts of posts, particularly with different groups of people who reach different audiences, we quickly find out that what we think is happening is not happening for everybody, and we've still got a way to go despite great progress. So this is why we launched it, particularly around amplifying the voices of staff at every level and in every job. So we're as interested in flexible working for porters and healthcare assistants as we are for junior doctors and newly qualified midwives and nurses who've been working in the NHS for 30 years and who may be struggling with menopause symptoms and want to start doing a different working pattern to support that, and also for consultants. So it doesn't matter how senior or not you are, how junior or not you are, and how long you've been working in the NHS for, it's for everybody. And when we first started, we had some feedback around people's experiences around working in the NHS and what work-life balance meant to them, and there was some good stuff, but actually overall it was a pretty sort of grim tale really around staff who were exhausted and struggling. And that was before the pandemic, so these are all fairly old news stories. And so actually the pandemic has changed that again, and our workforce is particularly fragile, I think, at the moment, and which makes flexible working even more important in my view, certainly. And we talk a lot about flexible working in the context of parenthood, and that's probably because of where Asha and I are in our kind of lives too, and it's something that we've got first-hand lived experience of. But obviously one of the big myths around flexible working is that it's kind of only for parents, and in fact just yesterday I put a post up on Twitter and got quite a lot of sort of grumbly comments in amongst lots of great comments about, well, if it wasn't for parents, you wouldn't need any flexible working, because, you know, it's still you parents making it difficult for everybody else. And I think that is a real myth and a real issue that we have to address, because it's not a parenting issue, it is a people issue. But we have to recognise, you know, within that people have different responsibilities, and that often they are shouldered by women. And for us in the NHS and the care sector more broadly, we are a workforce that is the vast majority of whom are women. So 77% in the NHS, more than 80% in the care sector more broadly. So lots of other issues that flexibility is linked to. Despite, that's one of my great bugbears, because despite being a 77% female workforce, we still have a gender pay gap that favours men. And actually a lot of that is linked to flexible working and progression for women. And, you know, women are more likely to work part-time and more likely to, particularly to balance outside of work responsibilities. And progression is harder in part-time jobs, and something that we also need to address. So over the last couple of years, of course, we've seen, you know, huge shifts and changes in the working world for everybody, certainly not just for the NHS. And I think that, you know, it's probably fair to say that as work has changed, our workers' expectations have changed. So I was on a meeting before this one around people talking about having to do a commute again into London. It was sort of like, actually so much is it feels so different now. What was normal before feels, you know, like it isn't anymore. And one thing we've seen that large portions of our workforce across the NHS work remotely, and that can work really, really well. It can work really effectively and efficiently and productively for clinical staff as well as administrative staff. But I think we've got to be really careful that flex and remote working aren't the same thing. And actually lots of our staff have found working from home to be quite invasive, actually, and quite intrusive, and people working very long hours. And of course they're not here in front of you, so you can't necessarily see that. So really important that we wrap that into our conversations around flexible working and agility around our sort of work offer. And then, you know, you'll on this call be really familiar with this, all of the stuff that kind of goes on around our lives, you know, the sort of economic, big kind of macro agendas around the economy, around sort of social fabric that enables work, particularly things like being able to access childcare, being able to afford childcare, being able to use family support networks to help support you going to work. And that's been really thrown under the spotlight with COVID. And actually there's some lasting legacy effects of that and of the last 2 years on that infrastructure. And I've talked a bit about life load there around furthering the gender divide, and I think that's a particular area of interest for me, actually, and particularly because we know that for our workforce demographic that is an issue. So how it can how flexibility can support a good working culture, and lots of this will be familiar to you, and in the NHS you may not know this, but we recently changed at the national level, changed the terms and conditions for NHS staff, so that flexible working is a day one employment right. The government are currently consulting on that, also to look to see whether that will go into legislation that's currently being consulted on through the business department, BAYS, and I can never remember the acronym's full name, but that consultation I think is open until December. But in the NHS that change has already come in, it came in last month, and so that will shift things significantly. It's a huge sea change in policy. And obviously for all the reasons described up here, it's helpful to increase diversity, for staff retention, to enable people to develop, to attract people into jobs. And I think the progression element is really important, so people don't stay in a job because they've got a flexible working arrangement and they don't think it will ever be replicated anywhere else. They stay in that position, knowing that actually that right is there from day one will help people to move roles and to progress. And I talked a bit about work-life balance here, and I just think that we talk about it a lot, but there's a huge continuum along work-life balance, from feeling burnt out and having to make interventions to help support your staff's physical and mental well-being and health in quite a critical way, through to this kind of bit in the middle that we probably all work in most of the time, to sort of blended balance is probably the aim. And maybe we do it, I don't know, maybe I get there, it's probably one day a year where I think, oh, I've got all this balance and it works really well, and really boundaried. So I think, you know, I work with some people who are great at being really boundaried around work, but I hear mostly from people who are kind of somewhere in that middle section, but also increasingly very aware in the NHS that a lot of people are right at the other extreme and feeling very burnt out. And there's something for me about how do we make flexible working agile enough in itself to respond to those needs when things change that are outside our control on our workforce. So just before I finish, there's a bit about what you can do, I suppose. And we talk a lot about just saying yes to flexible working, starting from a standpoint of saying yes. Again, those policy changes in the NHS have really will really help those conversations, will really enable people to say, well, I know I can ask for it from day one, so it's not going to be something that I can't think about even sort of starting a conversation about until I've been working here for 6 months. So being a visible role model, talking about flexibility, we find that really powerful at work. Talk about what it's sleepless nights with kids, or actually struggling with potentially care for elderly parents, and anything and everything in between. Increasingly in our organisation, and I know it's similar in other NHS organisations, we've been talking a lot about health issues, not only sort of long-term health issues, mental health issues like menopause. So actually just normalising the whole conversation, so it's not hinged around a life event, but it is around, just I would like to work flexibly, full stop, rather than I would like to work flexibly because. You don't need that kind of bar to get over. There doesn't need to be a because. So for the NHS, the NHS People Plan, that's where it all is set out. It's a phenomenal document and piece of work around changing policy, really active and interventional, and really will make a difference. And we work with other groups to promote resources. So Timewise is one of those, and NHS employers, and obviously unions too, who have a great bank of resources around flexible working. But we say this quite a lot through the campaign about it isn't about when you work, or where you do your work, or how you do it. It's that you do what you do, and that's where your value is, and that however you work and whatever your working pattern, your value is in the job that you do, not in how you do it. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and happy to have any questions, or if we're doing those at a different point.
Hello, thank you so much, Kate. That's just fantastic to hear the work of the campaign. And obviously there's a couple of points there that I was struck by, you as a busy mum yourself. So you talk about your lived experience, and I think that's very, very important. But I was struck really just from a general point of view about the conversations that you're having, leading to better insights and understanding. So whether it is the porter or the consultant, everyone has an issue perhaps that they want to address, and it's a people issue, not just a parents issue. So sometimes, as you rightly said, there's a bit of a backlash against people who seem to be demanding that. But absolutely fantastic stuff, and I'm sure lots of people will have questions, so we'll just save them until the end. So if anyone has any, you can, as I said earlier, put them in the group chat, or they can write them down, and then we can have them later on at the end. So we're going to move on then, and the next speaker that we have is Maurece Hutchinson. Maurece is the Managing Director of a law firm, JMK Solicitors, here in Belfast and Newry, and employs around 80 staff in their offices. And the firm is one of the first employers in Northern Ireland to reduce their working week for all staff by 20% with no impact on pay after a 2-year research project. And so we're really excited to hear more about that and how it works in practice. I can tell you our accountant is very keen to hear how that is going to work in practice. But over to you, Maurece. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've done a great job doing my bio for me there, so I'm going to be able to shorten this by about 5 minutes, hopefully. So I'm going to try and share my screen. This is the stuff that gives me nightmares, I have to say. So you can please tell me that it is there. Okay, so I'm just so delighted to have been asked by Sandra to talk at this brilliant event. I'm really hoping to take some insights away myself from the other speakers today, and from John, who's coming on after me. And I've just been so inspired listening to Kate, and it just, obviously, the work that she's doing is just so incredibly impressive and inspiring. So I'm definitely going to take some stuff back to our business, hopefully today as well. But as you know, I'm here to talk about flexible working in practice, implementing a 4-day week, And I really do wish we had the benefit of an event like this before we trialed it in our business. Being the first, the pioneer, so to speak, it was some rocky roads we had to endure. So as Marie kindly said, I'm the Managing Director in JMK. It's actually our birthday next week. We're going to be 18 next week, and we're a road traffic and personal injury specialist practice with offices in Belfast and Uri. And we're shortly going to be opening, we hope, in Derry/Londonderry. So we look after clients right across Northern Ireland, and we've been the #1 practice for the last 7 years consecutively and employ 80 staff. So you'll see a picture in front of you, and if you're looking at the slides and behind me, you'll see more of the same, because culture is everything in our company. Like many of you in your companies, you'll have a set of core values, and everything that we do in our business is based on these 6 pillars that you'll see there. So integrity, fulfill, success, innovation, priority, and results. So back in 2016, we undertook a project called the Core Value Project, which was team-led and represented every one of our core values in real life. These aren't just pretty marketing pictures that you see, they're actually how we do our business every single day and mean something to all of us. So this Core Value Project, the objective was to relocate the team to Lanzarote for the dismal winter months of February 2017. The objective of that project was to really look at seeing how we could do things more efficiently, either using innovation to stop doing needless tasks or shorten the time it took to do certain tasks, or cut out expenses such as needless photocopying, which, as you know, lawyers are drowning in paper. So that was a big saving in itself. And if the staff could find these savings that would meet half of the travel costs, we would be allowed to go to Lanzarote for the month of February. And I know the slide is a bit of a spoiler alert, because you can see we did just that, and off we went. I went in half-term week, and because a lot of people said, oh, we can't go because we've got kids. So I went in half-term week in February with my mum and my 2 kids, and it was amazing. But even more amazing than spending a lovely time in Lanzarote was when we came back, that we were astonished to find out that it was the most productive month and the highest turnover month in the business's history to date. And that really demonstrated to us that being truly flexible and being incredibly focused on a goal created great outcomes for the business and for the team. We allowed the team to basically pick whatever hours they wanted to work when they were in Lanzarote. So some of them worked from 7 in the morning to 11, and then came back on and worked from 5 to 7 in the evening, so they could get out and enjoy that lovely pool you can see there. And of course, our clients were totally unaffected by it, because we've got a VoIP phone system and we're fully paperless since 2011. So we have a bespoke case management system where all clients' files can be accessed virtually. So again, a big feat for lawyers who are usually surrounded in filing cabinets and drowning in files. So this really made us think, what about productivity? And let's think about that when we got back to not so sunny Northern Ireland. So we spent the next full 2 years on a whole team-wide project, which we called the Ultimate Core Value Project, or what we're now calling the 4-day work week. So if any of you are interested in this and have been following the global campaign on it, obviously some countries are adopting it, Spain, Scotland, Iceland, you will see that there's been a lot of studies talking about productivity. And in the UK, we are incredibly unproductive. Roughly half of our 8-hour day is unproductive. So what we worked out was all we needed to do to break even was to find 1 more hour of productivity a day, and then we could have a day off. So that's just a modest, really challenge to set yourself in your own business. So you'll see a very random slide here of a Staedtler pencils, and this was the sort of light bulb moment for me. I watched a program. It was a job swap program where a family in the UK went to work in Germany about 5 years ago, and they were able to demonstrate that why Germany had the highest productivity with the lowest working hours in Europe at that time. And really for me it was, well, if they can do it, why can't we? So lawyers are typically viewed as workaholics, and presenteeism is a huge cultural issue in our profession. And to be honest, I have long been the worst offender of that. And sadly, it's just been accepted that things can change, and that's just the way it is. But Lanzarote proved to us that it wasn't. We're always striving in JMK to change the perception of lawyers and legal services provision, and we're always focusing on our team's well-being, as we fervently believe if you don't look after your team, they're not going to be able to look after their clients. And Kate had talked quite a lot earlier about burnout, and burnout is a massive issue in our profession, and it will inevitably follow if you don't look after your team. And this has never been more so than in recent times, with people working from home and trying to balance all of the pressures there, not least the puppies we've all got now. Digitalization, mobiles, emails, and an always on approach with social media. So I believe everyone now believes more than ever coming out of this pandemic that we've got to value our health and rest so much more than we ever did before. So let's get down to some nitty gritty and talk about what the challenges were for us and how did we overcome them. So as I said, we spent 2 long years from 2017 to the end of 2019 planning and setting KPIs before we went live in January 2020. Yep, a fantastic 2 months before lockdown, and that wasn't scary enough. So the KPIs were our unmovable standard that we had to maintain, and they were based on actual stats from 2019, because it's really important that you don't set targets, which there's a danger of doing, particularly with competitive people like us. It's got to be real life. What were you achieving before, so that you can measure how you're performing after. A lot of other businesses who have adopted the 4-day week since we have just jumped straight in and said, here you go, give the reins to your team and let them get on. But we're perfectionists because we're lawyers. We're worried about things going wrong, and we overthought it. I wouldn't do that. I would not recommend that you do what we did. But we had to prove to ourselves that we could make it work. We needed to prove in advance that we were going to save the hour a day. So really what we did was looking at where we were spending the most time on different tasks or activities, and working out how we could do that task more effectively, and simultaneously creating a framework for the efficiency improvements, such as identifying the biggest time bandits and eradicating them. And there were certain KPIs that we simply couldn't risk failing on, such as, at the time, a 95% client recommendation rate. So I think if you saw the screens earlier, my amazing colleague and head of HR, Michelle Murphy, is here today attending this. And she really was the engine behind all of this. I cannot take the credit for it myself, and she'll be at the Q&A later if you have any questions for her. Another big challenge to overcome was the cynicism. That really was a shocker for us. You would think, who doesn't want this? Who doesn't want to work a 4-day week? But some feedback that we had was, do you not think we're working hard enough? And what's going to happen to my holidays? And others were concerned about, because they were already on less hours, were they going to have a pay cut? Some were worried about, what am I going to do with that extra time? And it just didn't work for us to roll it out to all teams at once. We had to be flexible as well, because when the courts closed for 6 months last year, our KPIs had to flex to meet that changing outcome, because it wasn't the team's fault that that happened. We also recognised that we needed to do stuff internally to respect people's time. We were chatting before we came on about email notifications and how that's like an annoying toddler pulling your coat down and saying mummy, mummy, mummy. So things like that, you have to really look at stuff, and meeting times need to be shortened. You can't have these long, lengthy meetings with everybody attending. But another thing we did, just a visual thing, was create gift boxes. So they were literally little white boxes with a red ribbon around them, with a big label on them that said time. And on those boxes, you've stuck a little flag in and put it on your desk. So it meant that nobody interrupted you, because we really needed to let people have the time that they needed to focus to get up to that extra hour of productivity. And I think that everyone now recognises that's a gift of time that they want to have respected. There's also certain myths, which Maurece has sort of covered off in her intro. But we had got a lot of comments on social media when we went live with this, saying it's a 3-day weekend. That might work for some businesses. It didn't work for us. We are open 9 to 5 Monday to Friday because that's when the courts are open, and with the litigation practice we have to match that. Some people didn't want to work a 4-day week. Some people wanted to shorten their days to work school hours, 5 days. But we really needed to make sure that we had a core covering of people from different teams in each day. For example, my core value day, as it's called, was yesterday. Another myth you'll hear people saying is, sure, you're just compressing your hours. You're doing 40 hours in 4 days. So we're doing 30 hours for no loss of pay. Or those in the team who were already working a 4-day week before the project got a 20% pay rise. And of course, the last thing is the 20% pay cut. It's the 100-80-100 rule. You're 100% of your pay for 80% of your hours for 100% of the output. So what are the benefits? There are many, many benefits, and I don't want to go over them all because I'm a very big talker and I'm probably going to go over my time. I'm going to have to be cut off or waved at some point. So our client satisfaction, I said, was 95% pre-project. Our client satisfaction rate is now 99%. So 99% of our clients would recommend us to a family or friend member. And the other story is it is a positive message. PI lawyers don't get a lot of good press or very few compliments. And I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to all you lovely people if I hadn't done this project. So I just think it's such a great thing to be able to go out and talk to you about. And there's an inevitable environmental impact from less traffic, less people traveling to work, less people in the office, less electric, all of those good things. So internally, you'll see there's a long list of benefits internally, as you would imagine. We actually engaged with a university graduate who was doing his master's to really look at the efficacy of our project, and he came and actually worked along with us for a while afterwards. He was so irresistible after studying us. So what he had found, there was a reduction in work-related fatigue, there was increased feelings of productivity, and employees felt that they had improved quality of life. And in fact, we had a 20% increase in productivity, which is what we needed to make the project work. Our unplanned absence from work fell by 1/4, and our turnover of staff fell by 50%. And I'm apologising in advance because I don't know who all is here today, but if there's any recruitment consultants today, I'll say sorry to you, because for the first time this year in 2021, we've been able to fill our vacancies by our own source advertising and didn't have to pay recruitment agencies as we've had to do previously. So that's really a windfall that we hadn't expected. And overwhelmingly, the teams are vested in this. They really want to do all they can to make this gift of time be kept for the future. And they've been instrumental in coming up with creative ways of how we can do things better. So as you can see, the business is getting a lot of attention. There's one of the pictures, and here's a whole lot more. I have now found myself on many different platforms. I did ask the marketing team when I was putting these slides together, am I some sort of egomaniac with all these photographs of me? And believe me, there are a lot more. And I'm not the only, you're not the only one, Kate, who's gone through many different hairstyles. So I'm going from lighter to dark, as you can see. And also my Pilates class last night, we're asking could they get a job in our place after watching the UTV interview last week, which was definitely one of my sort of scarier moments of my job, and certainly not I'm not trained for. So I'm going to try and wrap up here so I'm not completely abusing your time. So these are my top tips, really, takeaways. Plan, don't do it for 2 years. Get your baseline KPIs, create timesheets, even for a week or two, just to see where your biggest amount of time is spent, and then use that information to find out where you can reduce how you do those tasks. Flexibility, adapt it to your industry or to your work type. If you can afford it, invest in technology or AI solutions. It was critical to our success, and in fact, it was critical to our very survival during the pandemic, as we were able to flip to remote working instantly and during the lockdowns, and had access to all our clients' files remotely. We can workflow any company-wide changes in one go and be agile to the ever-changing circumstances, and they really were ever-changing over the last 18 months. And one example I can give of that flexibility is that one of our legal graduates is Polish, and she has been able to go back home since the restrictions were lifted and is now working from home in Poland. So anything is possible. run a trial, just go for it. You can always back out of it. Just be open with the team and say, look, we're going to try this and see if it works. If it doesn't work, you can go back. We rolled it out one team at a time, or you can roll it out one role at a time. In our case, in January 2020, we spaced every team out a week apart. So we made sure the client-facing roles went last, so we could iron out any kinks before we got to the stuff that was going to affect the service. And really, it was IT and accounts and all the support team went first, and the solicitors went last. And I believe if lawyers can do it, then any business or any sector can. Do not think this won't work for us. We've spoken to companies, there's only 6 employees or less working in the business, and they are now making it work for them. The next and most important, it probably should have been the first one, is let the team lead the project. They want to keep this gift, so let them be the leaders of it. And as the late great Steve Jobs said, it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people for them to tell us what to do. So create a forum to share their ideas. We put a ticketing help desk online where improvements could be logged. We've got clinics to raise ideas with suggestion boxes in each office, which are called "What would you do in my shoe boxes?" And we reward ideas that are going to help overall improvements with prizes, and people get obviously their time off if that isn't prize enough. So be prepared for the kickback, as I said before, the cynicism. Don't take it personally, but have your answers ready. Monitor your KPIs and report on them monthly, and review regularly what is or isn't working, and be prepared to adapt accordingly. So learn and keep tweaking as you go. Flexibility might suit for your business to open one day a week, or close, sorry, one day a week open would be great. Close one day a week. We can't because of court, unless we can persuade them to get on the 4-day week wagon with us. People might want to work school hours. We all know how flexible we actually can be, because we've all had to adapt from working from home, homeschooling challenges, and we've overcome all of those. So if not now, then when? Communication is absolutely key. People talk about communication, but it just is the most important thing, and that is internally and externally. Let everyone know that you provide a service to, what days each person is available. It's embedded in all of our emails and all of our outgoing communications, so expectations can be managed, and we always let client know who else will be available. We have a phrase in our business that you train people how to treat you. Encourage a team culture where no one will let a client down. If another team member is off on their core value day, we all rally round. What we've done is created a triangle buddy system, so it's a 3-to-1 for client support. Communication with your team is essential. They may be suspicious of you, which we really didn't expect. And it is important that the team can trust you and buy into it to make it a success. Lead from the top, or in my case from the bottom, as we've an inverted organisational structure. Make sure the management team take their core value day, as we call it, and don't slip back into checking emails or going on the phone or remote working, because it lets the team know that you respect it and that you mean it when you say it. We're totally open with the KPIs. The team can all see what they're doing and what they're achieving and what they need to achieve to keep the gift of time, as they genuinely never want to go back to working a 5-day week. So I just want to finish up by saying one last thing, which is really a bit of a threat and hopefully a bit of encouragement. If you don't do this, your competitors will, and you're going to lose your talent. We are definitely getting more jobs and more interest in vacancies, as I said earlier. And I really think that in a time where companies are really struggling to recruit, and they're talking about this recruitment crisis, this is a priceless thing that you can offer to new people wanting to join your business. And as one of our team recently said, sure, why would you want to work anywhere else? It's a win-win for us. We've got a happy team. We've got better commitment from our team, which means we've got happier clients, and we absolutely have no regrets in JMK. It's been an overwhelming success for us in terms of health, well-being, productivity, and client satisfaction. And who knows, we could be moving on to the 3-day week next. So I just wanted to say that's all from me for now, and I understand we will be doing all the Q&As later on. So I just would wrap up here by saying thank you all so much for listening to me, and I hopefully chat to some of you later. Thank you.
Unmute myself. Thank you so much. That is absolutely fantastic. Maurece, it is so good to hear from someone who's actually walked the walk, and I love the idea that it's called Core Value Day. Actually, I think that's class. If you're going to do something and do that, it needs to have something meaningful. It's obvious that even though you're saying that maybe not everybody has to do the 2 years research, but you've carried out very intensive research, and it's been so well thought through and careful planning. And I think that has probably added to his success, and the fact that you're constantly, continuing to monitor it. I think that after this call, there might be an increase in the number of inquiries to see what flights go to Lanzarote. I don't know. I think that's definitely something that's going to be fantastic, absolutely fantastic, really, really great. Okay, well, look, obviously I see a couple of questions coming in for Maurece and some of the other speakers. So we'll do all of those at the end, as we say. We're going to move on now to John. And John Mclaughlin, some of you will already know him very well. He's been interviewed in the media recently. John is the owner of Clearbox Communications, which is a local PR agency based in Hollywood. He has introduced a number of unlimited holidays for his staff. So again, I'm very much looking forward to hear more about this one. So whenever you're ready, John, thank you.
Thanks very much. Whenever you talk about unlimited leave, you get two reactions. People that own businesses throw bricks at you, and their employees give you a standing ovation. So it's always an interesting mix. But I will take you through a much less scientific version of the last presentation, which was really good. We didn't really do a lot of research to do this. I read a book and then just decided to change the rules of my entire business, but that's just how we roll here. Anyway, hello, my name is John Megaughin. Well pronounced, by the way. No one ever gets that right, so that was very impressive. I am a public relations consultant, and I own a PR agency in Hollywood called Clearbox. That is our team trying to look a lot cooler than they actually are, me more than them. In terms of what we do, very simply, we're a PR and social media agency, really. We work with loads of clients, from a local cloud computing company called 3EN. We have been Amazon's retained UK PR agency since 2015. We also manage social media channels for Boys Life, if there's any fans in the room. So that's Keith from Boyzone and Brian from Westlife. You can see what they did with the name. Love it. And one of our other big clients is Zoopla, the UK property website. So we do quite a wide range of work. I always get these numbers wrong. We're 8 years old and we've got 9 staff. We're about to go to 12, probably because you can take as many holidays as you want, but I'll chat to you about that in a second. And even though we're based in Hollywood, most of our work is actually done outside, and so it's predominantly in the UK mainland, where I spent most of my career up until now, which you can obviously tell because my accent doesn't at all sound like I'm from Ballymena. So swiftly moving on, enough of all that. So to give you a bit of an overview of our staff, as you saw from the picture that I showed you there, predominantly I think the average age here is 25 to 26. I obviously drag that up a little bit higher than it would be if I wasn't here. And the age of our staff is quite important because that was one of the reasons why we landed on let's offer them unlimited holiday. So to take it back, I read a book in December last year. I don't like business books. I never read them. I'm more into stuff about the Berlin Wall and David Bowie. But someone recommended a business book by the guy that runs Netflix called Reed Hastings, and it's called No Rules Rules. Really cheesy cliche thing. Oh, let's copy Netflix and do what they do. But that kind of planted the seed of unlimited leave. I've read loads about it before. We are not the first company to ever try this. We didn't create it. Thousands of companies have implemented it before we have. But myself and the senior management team here read the book and we thought, right, that's quite interesting. Anyway, fast forward a couple of months, we started doing a wellness survey. So there's a fellow that lives in England called David Josephs, very, very good man. He surveys our staff every quarter on, there's 10 questions. You answer them anonymously online and you rank the questions, how you feel 0 to 10. And it's, you know, do you enjoy working remotely? Do you feel well rewarded by the company? Do you feel recognized by your team? Blah, 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 blah. And it gives you an overall satisfaction score. So the first time we did it, we got 71 out of 100, which apparently, I mean, if I'd have got 71 out of 100 in my exams at school, I'd have been buzzing, like, but apparently it's not a very good score. So we had quite a lot of work to do on that. Something that came out of that process was our staff were struggling to switch off from work. PR is a very 24/7 industry anyway, because the media which we work in is 24/7. Social media channels don't stop. The news rolls all night, etc., etc. But what we kind of put it down to was remote working blurred the lines between the end of your work day and the start of your personal day. So we really just thought, let's try and give unlimited holiday, because that'll hopefully break the cycle of that. We looked at it and thought it's a really, really low risk way to test it, because you know, like someone else said earlier, if it doesn't work, you can just stop it, you know. So it's a trial for a year. It started in January, and we thought, why not? Let's give it a go. So we introduced it. To give you a bit of context, before we introduced that program, I need to look at my notes here because I'm not good with numbers. Like, my dad's an accountant, he'd kill me. So the package that we had before for our staff was actually quite good, in my opinion anyway. So it was 25 days holiday plus your start days, obviously. Then you got your birthday off as well. And then we had 3 different packages that we offered our team. So one was a parent package. So that was, in addition to all the holiday, etc., you got 24 hours of paid time off a year. So if you needed to take your son to the dentist, for example, or you were going to be, you know, you needed 2 hours in the morning to do something with the school, whatever it was, then you just took that, because we just didn't think, I mean, I'm not a parent myself, but I have often wondered my entire career why parents are penalised. Why should you have to take a half day to do something that will be done by 10 a.m? And I never understood why your boss couldn't just say, oh, well, why don't you just come in at 10 o'clock? Like, it's fine, you know, as long as the work gets done, that's all that matters. So that was the parent package. And then we also had, for the non-parents in the room, obviously, we had an inspiration package, which sounds a bit cheesy, but in hindsight, but it sort of worked. So that was the same amount of time off to go and do something that quote unquote inspires you. So, you know, climbing the Mourne Mountains or whatever it would be, you could do that. And then the final one, excuse me, which was one I used, was a volunteer package. So again, 24 hours of paid time off a year to go and support a charity of your choice. I did some stuff for Tiny Life. And then ever since then, the last 2 or 3 years, I've been working with Young Enterprise NI. And I kind of wanted to do non-PR stuff for charities, but whenever you go in, they want you to do PR for them. So, I mean, whatever, it's fine, you know. But it was working really well, but we just decided to change it. So what does it look like now? Basically, all of that stuff's gone. You get unlimited leave. And something else that we introduced was private healthcare and 2 different programs of mental health support. So our staff have, anonymously, obviously, access to a CBT therapist, which we pay for. You can have up to 6 sessions a year, but some people in the past have needed more than that. So, I mean, I'm not going to turn it down. We never find out who's used the sessions. We just get an invoice that says 3 sessions this month, and we pay it. And we partnered with a director that I used to work with in London, and a PR agency has started her own business, and it's called the Mind Tribe. You should check out. It's quite cool. It's online modules, just designed to make you more mentally resilient and to help you out in a pressurized environment, which working in PR can be at times. So that's basically the package now. So everything else, we've streamlined it. All the kind of bits and bobs have gone, and you get to take off as many days a year as you want. You still get full pay. The Belfast Telegraph ran an article about this, and I got absolutely hammered in the comments on Facebook for it, because, you know, as I'm sure the guys at JMK have experienced, oh, it's not really unlimited. They'll take your money off you. You won't get paid. People will be monitoring you, blah, 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 blah. There isn't any of that. So, yeah. How does it work? So basically, and again, this is quite straightforward, no more than 2 people from the same team can be off at the same time, because the number one goal is that our clients are still serviced to the standard that they expect and deserve. So the emphasis is really on the staff to sort it out amongst themselves. Again, to quote the old Netflix book, their culture is called freedom and responsibility, and that's something that we're trying to build here, because one day I would like to be doing other things with my life while this company continues to grow and be successful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to do that, we need to create the next generation of leaders. To do that, we need to build a better culture. So the emphasis is on the staff really to arrange it with themselves. So they put a request. We use an HR system called Breathe HR. It's not very expensive, but it is quite good. So if you've got a small business and you need to find a way of tracking holidays, et cetera, it's quite easy. They submit a request, you get an email, you click approve, that's it, done. So you can track who's where, et cetera, et cetera. So they submit the request, it gets approved, and that's it. So the emphasis is really on them to check the calendar before they submit a request, and then away we go. We have had some growing pains though. It was been interesting. So in a blog post I wrote about this for our website, I likened it to, you know, when you go to a meeting and there's a big plate of biscuits on the table, nobody takes one. And then like an hour later, somebody caves and lifts a custard cream or other biscuits are available. And then 5 minutes later, the plate's gone. That's what happened here. So it was almost like, is it really unlimited? Am I going to be judged for taking it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? But like, we're a very open culture here, talking to the staff, encouraging them to take, because obviously in the UK, there is a legal minimum for the amount of holidays that you can take. So it's making sure that they hit that number first and foremost, because they have to. But after a while, it started to work. But then what came was restrictions started to lift. Flights started flying again. So we actually had a scenario where 2 people were already off in the same time. A third one needed the holiday as well to go to a wedding. But again, you know, in the traditional world, that would have been on me or one of the senior managers here to try and sort that out. That's not how it works here. They sort it out amongst themselves. Someone cancelled their leave, so they've obviously done a deal with each other. I'll cover this one, but you owe me, et cetera, et cetera. So they were the 2 main bits. It was basically just getting used to it and accepting that, right, this is actually unlimited. It's a bit like, you know, the first time, if you ever gone to an event and there's a free bar or a wedding, the very first time you do it, you're a bit like, I need to drink 10 more pints of Guinness because it might not be free in an hour. It's like that kind of vibe. So now it's settled down. In terms of how it's been used, so 75% of the company to date, so from January, our holiday calendar in a traditional year runs January to December. So what we've been doing is we've been tracking the usage of the unlimited leave against the traditional year, just to see, is it useful? Is it being used? So 75% of the people in the organization have overused their holiday versus a traditional annual leave year. The people that haven't are on like 90-something% of usage. So by the time the end of the year comes, they will have overused it. The average overuse is a week, so 5 days. So typically, another comment that I got a lot when we tried this was companies only do this because they know that their staff will take less holidays than they would in a traditional year. So you're just trying to get them to work harder. Thankfully for us, that hasn't been the case, and it's worked out well so far. Big question is, does it work? For me, it depends. It's working of sorts for us. We're very lucky because we work in a digital focused industry. We have a digital focused business. When the pandemic happened, we already had flexible working in place. So it wasn't really a problem for us to, you know, up sticks and go and work from home. So we are quite a flexible environment anyway, which means there's a better chance of it succeeding. I understand that if you work on the shop floor of a factory, it might not work. So, or if you have a business with 1,000 staff, it might be slightly harder to, you know, police. It's the wrong word, but obviously you still have to make sure work's getting done, right? It's not free for all. So it works for us because we have a small business, and because of the nature of the work that we do, that has helped it kind of work for our company. Would I recommend it? Yes. But the main reason that it works for us is because we have a team that trusts each other, to be quite brutally honest. So there's no one in the company at the moment that would take advantage of it, shall we say. because, you know, it is unlimited at the end of the day. If you decide that you want 8 weeks off over the summer, then who am I to decline that? But your mates on your team that have to pick up your work for you might have an issue with it. So it only works because they all trust each other and because they can cover each other's work while the other one's off. So again, you know, we've got 3 new people joining the company soon. That's a risk to this because that might upset the balance. They will hopefully, all, if we've got our cultural hiring thing right, hopefully it won't. But again, it will only last for as long as it works and our clients are happy. I've just preempted this slide. It works because the team trusts each other. So that's an easy one to gloss over. In terms of 2022, is it going to stay? At the minute, I'm not sure. I think the real test for us will be when that magical day happens that COVID-19 has left the building and you can just go for a random weekend or a random couple of days in Berlin, like I did on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday this week, but I was working, to be fair. So we'll see. That's going to put a different strain on it because, you know, the younger generations are fans, and rightly so, of long weekends away or, you know, 2 weeks in Ibiza or whatever it is. So the honest answer is I don't know if we're going to continue in the next year. But so far the signs are good. And I think something I just wanted to add that I should have said at the start. So from a financial perspective, because obviously that's important too, last year we had our best year ever in terms of profit in the 8 years we've been trading. So financially we didn't need to do this. You know, the company is definitely moving upwards, and it has been over the last 2 years certainly, but it was more foreseeing problems coming down the line because, you know, if people are struggling to switch off at night and they're not happy, that's got a limited shelf life, right? So you need to I'd rather address problems before they begin rather than letting them blow up in your face. So it's more of a long-term strategy that we've tried this. So as I say, it's been a trial for a year. So far, so good. Will be tested with new people joining the company, with greater availability of holidays, etc. But I think I'm leaning towards keeping it at the moment. But who knows? Time will tell. And I think that is the last slide. So I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you on behalf of everybody. That's really, really fascinating. And I mean, I was struck by a couple of points that you made there in the term freedom and responsibility. And obviously you have a very, very close working, close-knit team that realise that they have to have, for this to work, trust and equal respect and understanding and staff involvement. It sounds very much like the staff are all bought into it. And the other point that I'm really I thought there is that you're not trying to gloss over and say, look, this is all perfect and we've got this right now and that's it. And the very fact that you're keeping it under constant scrutiny, and there is a potential, as you said, if someone new comes in and kind of changes the dynamics of the team and how that might impact on this policy, which is obviously held precious by those who are already in it. But Reed Hastings did say most entrepreneurial ideas will sound crazy, stupid and uneconomic, but will probably turn out to be all right in the end. So.
All my ideas sound like that, to be fair. Sorry, I should add, the one thing I didn't tell you, has it worked? So obviously we track the score, the happiness, that we call it the happiness score. So as I said, in January this year, it was 71 out of 100. It climbed to 75 or 76 in Q2. Q3 it was up to 81. We've just done Q4, so we'll see. But there's other factors in that, like, we're very honest here. Who in here is happier in June than they are in January? You know, it's a wee bit easier to be cheerful when the beer gardens are open, or it's, you know, versus when it's freezing outside and nobody goes out. But yeah, I mean, it's contributing, so that's the main thing.
Great. So hopefully, and I'm sure there'll be other people who'll have other questions in the future. So thank you. So just moving on then, last but not least, I'd like to welcome our own head of charity, Aoife Hamilton. She manages our charity team, which includes our family benefits advice service. Now, those are experts who provide a free advice and guidance service for employers and employees on issues around flexible and family working. And Aoife also directs our research, including some of you will be very familiar with the Northern Ireland Childcare Survey. And she heads up our lobbying work for, hopefully at the moment, we are really pressing hard for a new childcare strategy for Northern Ireland, which is long overdue and urgently needed. So Aoife is going to outline some of the ways in which our charity team can work and support employers. I'm going to hand over to you, Aoife. Thank you.
Super, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen as well, Mary. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. Thank you, Mary. It's been a fantastic morning so far, highlighting how the employers who are here are meeting the needs of staff in an innovative, tailored way. And it's definitely not just off-the-shelf solutions that may or may not work for individuals. I've learned so much, and not just that there is a boy's life, who knew? But so the context for today's workshop is very different from before COVID turned so much of our working lives upside down. We know that working from home became a new norm. Some have embraced it, but others have struggled to balance competing demands, to carve out the space needed to work without interruption, or to switch off at the end of the working day. And for many, working from home was simply never an option. And that's why, as Kate said, it's important that we don't conflate working from home and flexible working as one and the same. There are many ways of facilitating flexibility. And what's great about today is that our speakers have really broadened those perspectives on how we can support our workforce and benefit in turn. And particularly given the deepening staffing crisis impacting recruitment and retention that I think we're all seeing. So embracing this flexible approach to working, I think, as everyone has touched on today, it's really about attracting staff and displaying or expressing our organisation's character and values. So I'm going to touch on how Employers for Childcare can help you on the journey towards being family friendly, life friendly. I'll share some evidence that we've gathered which could help you to embed the policies and culture in your organisation, and give you an overview of some of the guidance and the ways our team can support. But the first thing is to share some of the challenges that parents, or indeed anyone with caring responsibilities, can experience when trying to juggle family life along with their working life. So based on research that we carried out a number of years ago with over 4,000 parents, we published a report called Striking the Balance. You'll see some of the key findings on this slide. So parents shared their experiences of passing on promotions, taking a less senior role in order to be able to access flexible working, and in some cases, leaving work altogether. And these are the challenges that were brought into really sharp focus when the pandemic took hold and we moved to lockdown. Parents started working from home. Schools and childcare settings were required to close to all but the children of key workers. And this had a significant effect on the ability of parents to work. And that was evidenced in follow-up research that we carried out with over 2,000 parents in Northern Ireland in September 2020. Parents told us that balancing childcare alongside working impacted negatively on their ability to work efficiently, on their work-life balance, and on their overall health and well-being. And in this environment, parents told us that having a supportive employer was key. And as you can see from the findings on this slide, looking ahead, there's real learning then for employers. So parents made a clear link between the facilitation of a more flexible working life and loyalty, productivity, and well-being. So 84% said they'd be more likely to remain with their employer if their employer facilitated a more flexible or agile working life moving forward. 77% said it would increase their productivity, and 88% said it would improve overall well-being. And the evidence is good things happen to companies who invest in their employees' well-being and work-life balance. So talented job seekers have a choice, we know that, and the benefits and support offered by employers hold a lot of weight. Out of the entire population of working age people in Northern Ireland who are in employment, we crunched the stats, 43% of those are parents with dependent children. So as part of the infrastructure enabling them to work, they need access to childcare. They may require flexible working arrangements, and they'll certainly appreciate a culture that values their multiple responsibilities. Considering their needs helps ensure employers can have the right people with the right skills at the right time. Because if we turn it around, otherwise, you're trying to secure or retain the people you need from just 57% of the workforce. So a family-friendly workforce is a commercially sound way of harnessing that potential and from a generation of talented people, creating a space that staff want to remain in. And thinking back to Maurece's earlier phrase that really struck with me, when a staff member said, sure, why would you want to work anywhere else? Isn't that the gold standard for all of us? And it doesn't just matter to parents or to carers, again, has been mentioned today. There is broadly a strong unmet demand for more flexible jobs. So some of the research is on this slide. The Time-Wise Flexible Jobs Index has reported that 87% of people want to work flexibly, and that rises to 92% of young people. HSBC's People and Productivity Report found that almost 9 in 10 employees consider flexible working to be a key motivator for their productivity and work. And that's even more than financial incentives. And the CBI Employment Trends Survey found that 99% of all businesses surveyed believed a flexible workforce is vital to competitiveness and prospects for business investment and job creation. The business case is compelling. And there is a clear direction of travel. Kate mentioned the government consultation through the Department of Business, Energy and Industry. They're consulting on making flexible working the default. This is recognised by the government as part of the plan to tackle longer term challenges of economic recovery. So world-class approach to flexible working, it's recognised as a key part of the government's ambition to build back better, ensuring our labour market is primed for the opportunities and challenges of the post-COVID economy. And that means focusing on all forms of flexibility, when you work as well as where you work, freeing employees up from the default, the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday model. And in Northern Ireland, a recent consultation on a skills strategy by the Department for the Economy included a commitment to introduce a business pledge to recognise and promote employers who actively engage with key principles in this area. Businesses of a certain size will be required to subscribe and promote the principles of a Better Jobs pledge prior to engagement with publicly funded support programmes. So employers who are already starting on this journey, who are moving in the right direction, you've got a head start when it comes to things like mandatory right to request flexible working from day one or signing up to a Better Jobs pledge. And the good news is Employers for Childcare is here to support you. So we've produced a range of guidance and information fact sheets all on our website. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on one of those guides in particular, our Employer's Guide to Being Family Friendly. And there's also our Family Benefits Advice Service, which I'll touch on as well. So first, our Family Friendly Employer Guide. It's a really useful resource that includes signposts to information to help you build your business case. And it also offers a practical toolkit to audit and develop your own approach. So I think listening to everybody today, one of the first things you're doing is talking, you're planning, you're speaking with your staff, and this guide can help you identify some of the questions you may need to ask. It recognises that there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and determining what arrangements work best in any particular context will involve a lot of consideration of personal and organisational issues. So for each step, there's a number of questions which you can ask and complete an audit, and ideally complete this on a regular basis as part of your organisational planning. I've just picked out one step here to show you in a bit more detail, step 4, developing an understanding approach, because as well as the legal framework, it's so important and has been touched on by everybody today. So there are questions here that senior management or HR teams can ask of themselves, but also questions for staff to challenge maybe perceptions or assumptions that might be made. An opportunity to consider how you can embed this way of thinking throughout your organisation and for real, not just on paper. So looking for ways to say yes to flexible working requests or offering flexible working before staff even have to make a request, supporting managers and those in the most senior positions to set a good example. So reflecting on our last Family Friendly Employer Awards, Belinda Brown, who was our keynote speaker, and she's a global director at Diageo, she said that she chooses to leave loudly when she's leaving work to collect her children from childcare or from school. She doesn't hide her life from work. She makes sure she is not the last one in the office. She works flexibly herself to reduce competitive sitting, as she called it, leaving rather than leading by example. And it's exactly what Maurece was saying about being a visible role model. So there's actions that clearly you can take to assist you in developing this approach. So as well as having policies, proactively raising these with staff, simply including them in support and supervision forums, a question about, well, what can we do to support you? Making sure there's an environment where nobody feels guilty asking for something, even when a policy is there, they're not screening themselves out of it. And in developing this culture, it's so important to ensure that line managers are genuinely engaged, that they get the training that they need and the support resources to make sure they're empowered to support the development of this culture. And again, that's where we can help. And our Family Benefits Advice Service is a resource for your team to call on. So working with your employees to develop these initiatives, it can be a great way of responding directly to their needs. And it doesn't have to mean going straight to unlimited holidays or the 4-day week, much as hopefully many of us are considering that now. We've worked with many organisations, large and small, charities, public, private sector over many years. And some of the initiatives that they've put in place are available on the screen here. There's something for everybody. Also working through this, I recalled a really nice memo that Joe Biden had sent to his staff when he was vice president. I imagine that's a pretty busy staff team he's got, but he made sure to say that he wanted nobody to miss or sacrifice important family obligations for work. Birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, bar mitzvahs, whatever it was. He went so far as to say if he became aware anyone working with him was missing an important family responsibility, it would disappoint him greatly. A small thing, but it made a big impact on his team. So finally, I'm just going to reiterate the support you can receive from Employers for Childcare's Family Benefits Advice Service, so you can be confident that you're making the most of what's available. So we have a free phone helpline and it's staffed by really expert advisors. It's available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Being able to signpost staff to this service, it allows them to have a confidential conversation about a potentially sensitive subject. If one of your staff maybe finds even that their partner has lost their job or wasn't brought back to furlough, it might be an issue outside of your workplace. They could be struggling financially. That could be a difficult conversation to have with a colleague, but not with one of our independent trained advisors. So please make the most of the helpline, promote it with your staff as much as possible and make sure they can avail of it, whether it's a new parent trying to find out what support they're entitled to or working with your managers and HR teams. Also, as an employer, you can no longer offer access to childcare vouchers to new starts. And that was often a good way of starting a conversation with somebody who's got childcare responsibilities. That scheme's now closed to new entrants. So maybe a really good way of working with new starts is giving them access or space in an induction period to contact our Family Benefits Advice Service to identify what support they're entitled to show that this is a conversation that you're open to. Our team also offers an online outreach service, delivering presentations, clinics, and one-to-one sessions. So, for example, you could come away from today's workshop and a simple but important next step could be to email our team, hello@employersforchildcare.org, to organise an advice session. It could be over a lunchtime, delivered for all of your staff or a department, where they can find out more about the support that they're entitled to with the cost of childcare or about flexible working policies. Could be a great first step to open up a workplace conversation about what other support may be available or may be attractive to them, and develop a culture that's open to new ideas about working flexibly. And the feedback is excellent, as you can see from the slide that's now on the screen, where we work with employers. They are really positive about the sessions that we offer. So I'd like to say thank you very much for your time today. I hope that our team at Employers for Childcare can look forward to working with you on the journey towards being more family and life friendly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aoife. Thank you. As Aoife said, it's important that while our engagement and outreach has now moved primarily online as a result of COVID-19, we've been really pleased to be able to continue to do that work with employers throughout the pandemic. And it has been a time when obviously they need more support than ever, really. And hopefully, obviously, Aoife's invitation is there to pick up you'd reminded me, I was smiling there when you mentioned about the phrase that Belinda had said about competitive sitting and leaving loudly. I think that's great. That's a nice thing to take away from today. And I would just make my own comment that whenever I had set up Employers for Childcare, which is 1999 now, more than 2 decades ago, it was as a result of a study visit out to a place called Kansas City in Missouri. And I was really struck then by very different sized companies. So we had very large casinos with childcare, 24-hour childcare on site beside it, not actually in the casino, but in the next building. And that was open to the casino workers and to fire service, to the equivalent of the NHS, obviously hospital staff over there. And then you had some very, very small private companies that had implemented various flexible working policies to support their staff, including their parents. And one of the things, the lesson that I took away from that really has stayed with me is, irrespective of the size of the company, the work that's being done, or the workforce, it can be done if there is a will, and it just takes a brave person to kind of start that conversation. And I think we have a lot of very brave people on the screen this morning, and thank you very much for that. So we have some time left now. The important thing for questions and for discussion and the opportunity to probe our experts a little further. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sandra, who is going to moderate the Q&A session. So if I'll just...
Thanks, Mary. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, always just never quite sure. So we have a very precious 11 minutes left for questions. And I think there was so much brilliant content in everything that we heard this morning. So I'm not going to talk very much. I'm going to hopefully open the floor to everybody else. I see there's one question has come in the chat, so we'll just start with that, and that's for Maurece. And it's around the bespoke case management system. So someone's asking, what do you have, or did you use a company to facilitate this? So that's a very practical question to start us off.
Yeah, we've got a case management system. It's called Proclaim, which apparently we bought, which would do everything for us and didn't 20 years ago, nearly put our lights out. So we spent about 10 years bespoking it. So we basically retrained one of our lawyers to become a programmer, and she has basically rewritten the system for us. So that's what we did. I know that that's not always an option for many companies, but I do think that having, anything anything that a robot or a computer can do, let it do it, because your value is your client facing stuff. So that's the system. I'm happy to speak to whoever asked that question directly if they want more info on it.
That, I suppose, leads well on to one of the questions I had thought as you were talking, Maurece, which was, you said even before, I think your staff went out to Lanzarote to sort of do the big planning for this, that having the ability to have, you had a paperless office since 2011, I think you said. Yeah. Would you say that having that IT system in place in the background has been key to allowing the 4-day week project to work?
Absolutely, because we can run reports in real time on anything. So for us to create the KPIs, you don't want to have another job like monitoring stuff. So it can fire the stuff out to you like nearly like a dashboard you can look stuff up on. So you can, you've got automated reports. You're not having to spend time doing manual managing. It's just all there for you. So that's why I was saying that the whole point about you want the team to know that it's true. They need to be able to see it as well, so they can all look at that information too. So it means that that the business isn't going to go under. I mean, our team are so, we are so open about everything to do with salaries, how the business is performing and all that kind of stuff. And, when we were doing pay reviews recently, they were saying, now, are you sure you can afford this? Which is quite funny, for thing to somebody to say, but that's how much they're invested, in terms of the business. They really want, they don't never want to leave. They want this place to be going forever,
Super, that's great. Okay, another question then for John. So this again has come in the chat. It says, you didn't mention the relationship of unlimited leave to payment. I assume there's no reduction in salary and for the unpaid leave. And are you finding any comparisons within the team then, or resentment of some team members taking more leave for the same pay?
Apart from the resentment I have, because I never get a day off, because woe is me. No, I'm only joking. No reduction in pay. Most people here have had 2/3 pay raises this year, just to kind of bring us in the line where we need to be. In terms of resentment, we we have a monthly check-in with everybody in our team. Our general manager sits down with them for, they're called rhythm meetings, and I need to come up with a better name because it's horrible. But no is the short answer. There's been nothing, I guess, because again, it's that trust thing, isn't it? So they're all quite close. So it's, you know, if somebody needs a week off to go and do whatever they need to do, then their mates kind of fill in for them. So I guess that's just getting back to the point I made earlier, where it'll work as long as that trust is in place, and that's the gamble whenever we add more personalities into the mix. Will it stay or will it go?
Okay, great. And just while I'm abusing my position, I know, but something that as you were talking struck me, as the boss and as your, I don't know what management structure you've got, it's a reasonably small company, but as you know, the folk that are maybe managers or whatever, are they setting a good example in the sort of Belinda leave loudly category? Because I suppose that's where it's about like the plate with the biscuits. If the people at the top aren't kind of doing this, are the others then going to be going, well, what's it going to look like if I'm suddenly, you know, taking slightly more leave than normally I would, that sort of thing? Yeah,
I mean, to be brutally honest, I don't take that much time off, but that I think they expect that of me. But yeah, the management team, the people that actually run the company and do all the important stuff, have overused the program. So yeah, they're leading by example.
Okay, great. There's a question in for you, Mary, from Kate. So the casinos with the 24/7 childcare model I've heard of via podcast, and is the only example of 24/7 childcare I've found. Do you know of others? Maybe Aoife as well, you might like to come in on this. Or anyone else? Mary, you're on mute.
There was one that opened up in Donegal, just across the border and it attracted people who were working both in Derry and Donegal, and it was based on the same model where it attracted people who worked in Letterkenny General Hospital, and there were a lot of 24/7 factories around the area at the time. Now, I do believe that has since not open 24/7. So it was originally open at that stage, but I do believe that has shortened its opening hours. There are a lot of restrictions to do with child ratios and with social work, you know, with just the restrictions and the limitations around that. But they were, and I'm more than happy to speak separately if anyone wants any information around the ones that were in Kansas City. But they, to my understanding, still exist, and it was open to, as I say, people who work. You imagine all of the people, police officers, staff, all of the, you know, fire service and that require it. There's none other in Northern Ireland that I am aware of, though, unfortunately. Okay. Project. Not.
I should have said at the start, if anybody wants to ask questions, if you just click on the little raise hand button, and we'll keep a wee eye on that, or pop something in the chat either. And if you don't want to ask your own question, I'm more than happy to read it out. As I say, there's loads and loads we could be asking, but I don't want to be monopolizing this as your session. There's another question in for Kate, and something we get asked: what are your top tips for getting buy-in from staff, perhaps from line managers who are concerned about the impact of flexible working requests on their own work? And what would you say to an employer who says, this isn't realistic for us, our staff can't work from home, we have to get the shifts covered? All of those objections that I'm sure we're all familiar with.
Yeah, thank you. It is, I mean, it definitely is an issue. I think it's a big change for some managers, and especially we get this, you know, not infrequently about the kind of, I had to work a certain way, so, you know, why shouldn't you? And I think it is, so it's a bit of a leap of faith. I think often we expect managers just to roll with this stuff and don't give them any tools to help them. So really good toolkits for managers, understanding flexible working, understanding what's in their gift to say yes to, and also encouraging them to get their staff involved in, so we're big proponents of getting staff involved in roster planning. So in a similar way, in a sort of different, in a similar way to the trust relationships that John was particularly describing, actually trusting your staff to come up with the right solution. So when you've got team roster, and instead of the manager sitting in an office and doing the off duty for you know, a day, actually opening up those conversations to the team and saying, right, these are the shifts, you know, people know what needs to be covered, it's a 24/7 service, and who can do what, and then actually just trying to work through the bits that, you know, some of the bits that are a bit sticky at the end with the team, and looking for solutions that they can buy into. Again, for me, it's about rather than putting all the pressure on the manager to sort out those issues, enabling a good team conversation, because that it gives people a bit of power and autonomy over their own time, and they're more invested, I think, as a result in covering those shifts and in looking for solutions. Because if you ask people to look within themselves, and they tend to find them, rather than saying this is what you must do, and if you don't like it, sort of, well, tough luck. So that's what we've found. But it is a slow process of cultural change, especially in an organisation as big as the NHS. We've got 1.3 million employees, and we've got hundreds of different organisations. So it is a long, slow process of getting that change embedded, but it's certainly possible.
And would you say that COVID has accelerated that change, or would you say it has set it back? Obviously, we know it's taken a huge toll on the workforce, but maybe out of necessity in some roles, flexible working had to become possible. People had children at home and the childcare was closed, and ways had to be found to work.
So I think it has, in lots of ways, shown the art of the possible. And I think that, so certainly around things like, so for example, in outpatient clinics, saying to patients often, I know this is a big debate currently around GPs, but so for us, saying actually, I don't want to take half a day of annual leave or half a day out in whatever form to go and have an outpatient appointment where someone says, thank you very much for coming in, I've done your blood test and I'll see you again in 6 months. Actually, I prefer to do that over the phone, and lots of routine appointments can be done virtually and over the phone, and that means clinicians can do them remotely and in different ways, and it suits the patient and it suits the clinician. So I think it absolutely has opened up what is possible. I think the issue for us is not what will be in the NHS. I think probably just not reverting to what we had before, and losing all that progress. So keeping the good bits and then tweaking them, evolving them, developing them, rather than saying it's one or the other, because it won't be. It will be something we can develop.
Okay. Okay, there's Michelle has her hand up. If you want to go ahead, Michelle, unmute yourself and ask a question. Sorry, Michelle Murphy.
Hi, thank you. I work with Maurece and JMK Solicitors. I'm the head of HR and ops there. And one thing I wanted just to ask John was, obviously, when we introduced our reduction to the working week, one impact was on holidays and annual leave. Now, we didn't change our annual leave. We still have as much annual leave as we always had, which was effectively sort of a 20% increase. But we always have had and continue to have cases where we're having to encourage the team to take annual leave. And I love the idea of unlimited annual leave. I love the idea of how easy in some ways that might be to manage, and I think it's something so interesting. But have you found that you're always still encouraging team members to take leave, or is that not an issue given your age demographic, maybe perhaps?
Yeah. It hasn't really been an issue, to be honest, but I guess, like I said about the kind of plate of biscuits at the start, I really fancy a biscuit now. I wish I hadn't said that. It took a while to get it going, and then once it was going, once we pushed up the hill, it went down the other side quite easily. But it's just always a reminder, if they've been working, PR, you work quite late. Sometimes you work events, etc., etc. You might work weekends. It's just saying, why would you not take a day off next week just to catch up on what happened last week? So gentle encouragement, just not even to use the leave, it's just really to look after yourself and don't get run down or whatever.
Great, thank you, John. Another question then from Roisin McCaskey. I know both Maurece and John said the clients are happy with the team performances since the changes. Was there any initial apprehension, thinking their cases or their projects would suffer, and how did you reassure? So that's about the external, I suppose, communication around your projects.
I mean, not really for us. It was more like jealousy of, why can we not have that? We're going to suggest that to our boss. But no, the trust that we have, it works with our clients as well. So they know that we would never do anything that would jeopardize the relationship that we have with them. Otherwise, we'd all be out of a job. So I think they trust us to do the best job for them, and we trust our team to do the best job for them. So again, at the minute it works. We might add a new client in the future that doesn't think like that, might have an issue with it. So, but again, it's like adding a new team member. It's working today, but who knows about tomorrow.
We have about 4,500 clients, so it wasn't obviously a huge concern for us in terms of, I'm sure in John's company, your clients should have them for life, hopefully, but ours, have quite a short cycle with us, so they want to be sure that their time, and that's why we created that 3-to-1 buddy system. and every communication is saying there's a team of people helping you, and all that stuff I talked about, like saying we always have somebody willing to step in. We have a phrase like result the call. Every call has to be resulted. So if somebody doesn't ring in, people think solicitors are doing everything they can to avoid clients who, because you're interrupting me from doing my work. We don't realize they're the whole point of your work. So we would do a lot of work internally about, really about client focus, making sure calls are getting answered. But like that's one of our KPIs. There's lots of stuff that we do to ensure that never happens. I think the only time we had somebody say something negative was right in the middle of the pandemic. We had a taxi driver client who clearly hadn't worked for a number of months, and he said, "Oh, it's all right for you for your holidays," and he wasn't, but then you said, look, you realised it was nothing to do with you. He just wanted to vent because he was having a stressful day. But that is the only thing that I can say that we've had negatively, because as I've said, our satisfaction rate went up by 5% during the trial. So I think that's really it. I mean, people will do anything they can to help clients, whether it's reception team, support team, solicitors, the managers, we all rally around. So every client's call gets dealt with when they ring in. So that's really how we've managed it.
Great, thank you. Like, I'm conscious, everybody, we could talk about this, I think, for an awful lot longer, and I'm sure there's lots more questions we'd love to all ask you, but I know people are rushing off to other meetings, so I'll just thank you to everybody for their participation. I'm just going to hand back to Mary, who's going to say a very quick thank you and just close off the session. Mary.
Hello, am I unmuted?
Yes,
okay, thank you. So really, genuinely, a very big thank you to everyone today who has given their time, particularly the speakers and all of the delegates who have been here with us. We will follow up with a very short link, and I promise you it will be very short. If you would like to, for a survey, and I would be very grateful if you could fill it in, and if we will present all of the speakers' notes and all of the presentations to everyone, make those available. And if you could share your feedback on that survey, it would be fantastic. And if anyone wants to follow up, say with Aoife, to see how we could possibly help you as employers in the future, we would be very happy to do so. Can I just say thank you very, very much to everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.